One of my favorite things that I do all year is sit after I light Chanukah candles. I love sitting and watching the candles for half an hour. I know that if you've never done this before, I know it sounds incredibly hard, and even if you have done it before, you know how difficult this is because then like your kids are saying, Ima, can you get me this? And Ima, can you wipe my tushy? I just went to the bathroom, and everybody needs help, and the phone's ringing it up, but you are just sitting there. You just sit for half an hour, and it's one of my favorite experiences of the year. First of all, because it's a very special experience all of a sudden just to sit in the middle of like sort of like the balagan of family and everyone running around and everyone knitting. You're just like sort of sitting. You're just seeing, the world survives when Ima is just sitting and not doing anything. But for me, the most moving part of it is just watching the candles. I love watching these candles. And I find it just so powerful. We turn off the lights and seeing the brilliant light, the brilliant, powerful light of a single candle in the darkness, like how those 2 candles or 3 candles or 4 candles or 5 candles, etc., how they bring so much light to a dark room. And I find it very inspiring because I think that so often, in life, we feel like the world is a very dark place and there's so much going wrong. And we think, all of us, we want to do good and we want to make the world a better place, but what can we possibly do? There's so much darkness. Like, what can we possibly do to make the world each of us, I think, is a candle. Each of us is a candle in the darkness. And we really can make a big difference just with our one candle. So I wanted to just tell you two stories, one a small story and one a very big story from my life of people who, for me, have lit a candle in my own personal darkness. So the first story is just a cute little story I want to share with you, something that happened to me this past Friday. So a bit of background. We have a microwave that it's just drives me crazy, this microwave. So we've had it for about half a year and it's broken twice. And I end up spending so much money, going back and forth with a taxi to schlep this microwave to where it needs to get fixed. I'm not even sure that's worth it anymore. So basically, I went this past Friday after after it got a second repair, and I was bringing it back from the store, from like the lab where it had been fixed. And I was sort of like, I'm spending Friday doing this stupid thing, fixing this stupid microwave again, and so I get into the taxi, and I look around, and so I see the taxi driver taking me is not wearing a kippah, doesn't look particularly observant. But I look around me, and like in the side of a door of a car door, then there's like a little pocket. So I see next to me, then there's like 3 Sifrei Tehillim, like books of Psalms, and a copy of Garden of Emunah by Rav Arush, and in the other one right across in the other door, then there's an additional 3 copies of the books of Psalms, and a small like a little pamphlet with sort of sayings from the Garden of Emunah. So I was like, I thought that was sweet. So, and also I realized I hadn't davened that day. So I was looking around for a sitter, for like a prayer book. And so the driver heard me looking around, and he says, "Oh, Gaveret, what are you looking for?" So I said, "I'm looking for a sitter." He said, "No problem. It's the one with the black binding," and I found it. And he said, "But Gaveret," he turns around to me and says, "But Gaveret, that will cost you 10 shekels. That's $2.50. It costs you 10 shekels per word." So I saw he was joking. I said, well, 10 shekels per word, that's a great deal. That's a great deal. I get to like talk to God, and say these, is there anything holier than the words that which we find in the Siddur, that we find in these books of Psalms, in these car doors? No, there's nothing holier than that. So I say, 10 shekels per word, that's a real bargain. And so the driver smiled, and he said, "Gaveret, I'm impressed. You get it." He said, "Most people I say that to. They say, what are you talking about? They say that's way too expensive. 10 shekels per word is way too expensive. But you understand. You understand the power of the words of prayer, of the words of the prayer book. You understand they're priceless. These words." They're priceless. He said, I could ask even 100 shekels for these per word. They're that priceless. So 100 shekels is $25. So I just smiled, whatever. And so he drove, and I davened. When I was done davening, I thought, I'm going to get out. It's been a few years since I read Garden of Emunah, one of my favorite books, but it's been way too long since I read it. And so I got out, like, it was like the little pamphlet with like a few of the famous sayings from Garden of Emunah, and I read something that just like the first little excerpt there, and it gave me it spoke so directly to something that I'm struggling with. I spoke about last week how just recently I have in my life, I have a big problem, and recently like about 2 weeks ago, I had a big setback regarding my big problem. It's been a big cause of disappointment to me. And so reading this, it was exactly, it gave me so much chizuk, specifically about this thing, this my big problem that I'm struggling with so much. So when I was about to get out of the car, I said, Hanahag, thank you so much. What I read here, it gave me so much chizuk. You, mamash, you like made my day. I said exactly, I would thank Baruch Hashem that Hashem sent me exactly to this taxi to read this paragraph. It meant so much to me. And he says, Gavert, just take it. I want to give it to you. It's a gift. I was like, what? You want to give it to me? He says, yeah, I want to give it to you. I said, no, I'm not going to take it from you. I said, everyone who gets into this taxi is getting so much chizuk from this pamphlet. I'm not going to take it. He said, Gaveret, my taxi, my book. It's my right to give any present I want to anybody. You take it. So I had it. So he gave me the little pamphlet. I think it's called Pninei HaEmunah. And even today, and basically I just want to say that little bit the little keta that I read, the little excerpt that I read, it totally transformed my day. On Shabbat, I was thinking about it. This morning I had to go on the light rail, and I was reading it again and getting more chizuk from it. And this person, he doesn't know my name. He doesn't know about my big problem. He doesn't know whatever. But he gives me this little act of kindness that he did for me, and the fact that he has holy books in his taxi is amazing, and that he gave me this book. It's a little he was lighting a candle in the darkness, and it really made a big difference to me. It really, who knows, maybe in the weeks to come, I'll keep on looking at it. It really make a big difference in my outlook and how I see the world and Hashem's role in the world. Okay, so that's a little story, and I want to tell you a very, very big story about a huge chesed, a huge act of kindness that a person did for me. From his point of view, it was a very, very little thing. From his point of view, he has no idea that he did something for me that totally changed the course of my life, and that all of the blessings that I now have in my life come from him, come from his small act of chesed, and he has no idea. Okay, so this is what happened. 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago in a few months, I was working in New York City. I had just graduated from college, and I was newly religious, and I was working at a Jewish community center in Brighton Beach with Russian immigrants. And and I liked my job. It was nice. I had studied Russian and political science in college, and I was newly religious, so it was a job working in Jewish outreach with Russian immigrants, and I really enjoyed it. I worked with wonderful people, and it was really I felt like it was really a dream for me to be working there. But so one Shabbat, I was invited to Shabbat somewhere, and I met a young man there, and he made a really good impression on me. I thought he was a really sweet guy, and so I was hoping that he was going to call me and ask me out. And a day passed, and 2 days passed, and 3 days passed, and I was just waiting for him to get in touch with me. And he never did. He didn't call. He never did. To this day, I'm no longer waiting for him to call, but he never called me. So I was really, really depressed. And I was like, I thought, I'm 21 years old, and up until that point in my life, I'd never had a serious boyfriend. Never. And I was always the one who didn't have a boyfriend. And I thought, okay, I'm 21 years old. I've never had a serious boyfriend. And I'm just going to be, lonely and live a solitary existence for the rest of my life. I'm one of those people, I'm going to be like an old spinster who, never marries and Sorry, one second. And so it was around that time, let's say about a week after this, that the guy never called, and I was just sort of resigning myself to like just this miserable solitary fate. That I was invited by the Jewish Federation of New York to attend it was like a day-long seminar for Jewish educators. I believe Jewish educators working with Russian Jewish immigrants, and so I went. And I don't remember I don't remember. Probably there were other classes over the course of the day. What I do remember is there was this young teacher, maybe rabbi, who had come from Israel. He was like American Israeli, and he taught us a midrash, a story from the Talmud. And the story is you probably know about it. It's the story of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. One of them swimming in the Jordan River, and then the other one jumps in, and then it's like a whole story. And we read it, and then he went to the story, and he asked us to sort of go over it in pairs. And it was so exciting to me. I loved learning Torah. I just loved it. I had learned a little bit. I had spent about 3 months at Neve Yerushalayim, so I'd had a bit of an exposure to Torah learning, not very, very much. But it reminded me, like this teacher, he just reminded me how much I wanted to learn Torah, and how much, and I realized that I thought, maybe for my whole life, I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to fall in love. Nobody that I love is ever going to love me back. So, but at least I can do something that makes me happy, that brings me deep, true joy, which is learn Torah. So that same week, I resigned from my job, which was sort of a dream job for me, and I gave them, 2 weeks notice. And my grandmother, Zichrona Levracha, had told me about sort of a yeshiva. It's a pluralistic yeshiva called the Pardes Institute. It's for men and women together. It's for people basically like me who were just right out of college. And I decided so I signed up. I think it was in August. I resigned, applied to Pardes, was accepted, and I came to Israel. And I never looked back. I moved. Basically, I never went back to America. I came to Israel, and I was studying at Pardes. I had a classmate there. His name is Michael Bernstein, now Rabbi Michael Bernstein, and Michael Bernstein was in my class, and he invited me to his apartment for a Friday night dinner, Parshat Lech Lecha, exactly 20 years ago. And who was there but a young, sweet yeshiva student from Canada named Joshua Weisberg. Baruch Hashem. And the rest is history. So, so this person, I don't know his name, but I owe him everything. I owe him the fact that I'm living in Israel. I owe him the fact that I met my husband, that that I had these children with my husband, and that I'm living my wonderful life, here. And even the fact that I have Jewish mom back home. Who knows what would have happened to me if I'd stayed in America? Everything comes from this one small candle in the darkness that this person came. I don't even know who. I'm sure that he probably has no recollection of teaching this class, 20 years ago. But that candle in the darkness, it totally changed my life. It's the source of all blessing in my life, was that little class that he taught. Okay? So I just want to bless all of us. It's Chanukah. And first of all, I want to recommend to you that you Jewish mom, that try it. Even if you just do it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just after you light the candles, sit down and just watch them. And focus on this. And focus on that, of the power of light in the darkness, the power of you, Jewish mom, to be a force for good in the world. Rabbini Imim, I just heard her speaking this week on Yud Tet Kislev at Binyanei Oma. She was amazing, and she was just saying how, she said what we should do when you're looking at those candles is watch them and dream. She said, all of us had dreams, and we've forgotten about them. To remember, watch those candles, and to remember your dreams. Because if we don't remember our dreams, there's no way that our dreams will come true. So I want to bless all of you Jewish moms, and all of us, that this year, that B'ezrat Hashem, that through the power of Chanukah, the power of seeing these lights and watching them and focusing on that, of the power of one single candle to light up the darkness, that this year we will merit to light up our families and our homes in the entire world. Wish all of you Jewish moms with an amazing Chanukah.